Hey everyone, welcome back to Lina Talks. I'm Lina, and this channel is all about real talk and real stories. So without wasting any time, let's get straight into today's topic.
After 40 years of silence, a name the world thought belonged only to history echoed once more through the boxing universe. Bruce Lee, not in a movie, not in a documentary, not in an old interview replayed for nostalgia, but right in front of Muhammad Ali's eyes. Those who were there say the air changed. Conversation stopped. Time itself felt like it hesitated because what happened next wasn't supposed to be possible. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a challenge. There were no gloves, no cameras, no flashing lights. It was something far more powerful. A final meeting, one no journalist ever reported, no camera ever captured, and no official record ever acknowledged. For decades, the story stayed buried, whispered only in locker rooms and private conversations among fighters who didn't dare speak publicly. Until now. Witnesses say Muhammad Ali, older and quieter, was sitting alone when the moment happened. His body carried the weight of time, but his eyes still held the fire of a champion. Then suddenly, he froze. Not because of pain, not because of fear, but because he recognized something no one else did. A stance, a presence, a movement so familiar it reached across decades. Ali reportedly whispered a name, barely audible, but enough to send chills through those closest to him. Bruce. People laughed at first when the story surfaced. Called it myth, called it imagination, called it emotional exaggeration, but then more witnesses came forward. Different places, different years, same story, same details, same silence afterward. What happened that day didn't just shock fans. It didn't just confuse historians. It broke hearts because it wasn't about boxing or martial arts. It was about unfinished respect, about legends who never needed titles to recognize each other. When the full account finally reached the public, fighters cried. Trainers went quiet. Fans replayed old footage, searching for clues they had missed for decades. And the boxing world realized something painful and beautiful at the same time. Some moments are too powerful for cameras. Some meetings are meant only for legends. And some stories don't surface until the world is finally ready to feel them. Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali. Two names that don't just represent greatness, they define it. One ruled the ring with lightning footwork, sharp wit, and fearless confidence. The other reshaped martial arts with speed, precision, and philosophy that went far beyond fighting. Two icons, two different worlds, one deep, unspoken respect. In the early 1970s, their paths crossed briefly. Not at a press event, not under bright lights. There were no cameras waiting, no reporters scribbling headlines. It was quiet, private, almost secret. They talked about movement, how speed could defeat power. They talked about rhythm, how timing mattered more than brute force. They talked about the mind, how fear slowed the body before any punch ever landed. Bruce Lee listened closely to Ali's footwork, fascinated by how a heavyweight could move like a featherweight. Ali, in return, studied Bruce's calm intensity, his economy of motion, and his belief that true power came from control, not force. There was no competition between them, only curiosity, only respect. Ali later hinted at those conversations in interviews, smiling whenever Bruce Lee's name came up. Bruce, in rare moments, praised Ali's speed, calling him a master of movement. Those were small comments, easy to miss, but they carried weight. Then suddenly everything ended. In 1973, Bruce Lee died unexpectedly. The news stunned the world. He was young, strong, untouchable in the eyes of fans. Overnight, a legend was frozen in time. For Ali, the loss was quiet. No public statements. No dramatic speeches, just silence. Those close to him said he grew distant whenever Bruce Lee was mentioned, as if a conversation had been cut off mid-sentence, never to be finished. The world moved on. Ali continued fighting. Bruce became immortal through film and myth, and everyone assumed that chapter was closed forever. But life has a strange way of reopening unfinished stories. Decades passed. the world changed. Boxing evolved. Martial arts exploded into global culture. New generations rose. Knowing Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali as legends, not as men who once sat together, exchanging ideas without an audience. Yet somewhere beneath the surface, that unfinished bond remained. Not written in books, not recorded in archives, just carried quietly by memory, respect, and time. Then, after nearly 40 years, fate decided that silence had lasted long enough. What followed wasn't planned. It wasn't announced, and it certainly wasn't meant for the public. It was simply destiny turning one last page. Bringing two legends together again in a way no one could explain. And no one who witnessed it would ever forget. Muhammad Ali was older now. The speed that once shocked the world had softened. The voice that once shook arenas was quieter. Time, the only opponent no champion ever defeats, had left its marks. His steps were slower. His hands trembled slightly. But behind his eyes, the fighter was still there. That night, the boxing exhibition was private. No media frenzy, no roaring crowd, just a respectful gathering of fighters, trainers, and a few invited guests. Ali had come not to perform, but to be honored. Backstage, the air smelled of leather and sweat, memories clinging to the walls like ghosts. Ali sat alone, hands resting on his knees, listening to distant applause echo through the arena. Then someone stepped closer. Not loud, not announced, a presence. Ali looked up. The man standing before him had gray hair, calm eyes, and a posture that felt strangely familiar. He wasn't tall. He wasn't imposing. Yet something about him commanded the room without effort. Ali's smile faded. His breathing slowed. He stared not at the man's face, but at his stance, the balance, the stillness, the readiness beneath the calm. Ali froze. His lips parted as if the words escaped on their own. That movement, the man didn't smile. He didn't bow. He simply spoke softly, almost gently. You once said, speed was power. The words landed like a punch, not to the body, but to the soul. Ali's hands began to shake. Not from fear, not from age, from recognition. Only one man had ever challenged him with ideas instead of fists. Only one man had ever spoken to him about speed, timing, and freedom of movement as if it were poetry. Ali swallowed hard. His eyes filled. Nobody says that to me anymore. The room felt heavy. Silent. Even the walls seemed to listen. Those nearby sensed it instantly. This wasn't a fan. This wasn't an admirer. This was something deeper, something impossible. Ali slowly rose to his feet. His body unsure, but his spirit certain. He studied the man's face now, searching for confirmation. His mind was afraid to accept. Decades vanished in that moment. The 1970s returned. The conversations, the respect, the unfinished bond. Witnesses later said Ali looked younger, not in body, but in spirit, like a warrior remembering who he was. No one dared interrupt. No one dared record because whatever this was, it wasn't meant to be captured. Do you believe legends ever truly leave us? Comment yes or never. No cameras rolled. No crowd cheered. There was no announcer's voice, no spotlight, no applause demanding attention. The world outside continued moving, unaware that something unforgettable was unfolding in a quiet backstage room. Muhammad Ali pushed himself up slowly from his chair. His body resisted, stiff from years of battles both inside and outside the ring. Every movement carried effort. Yet in that moment, his posture straightened, not from strength, but from recognition. He looked directly into the man's eyes and then it happened. The bravado was gone. The famous smile disappeared. Tears filled Ali's face. Not the kind that come from pain or weakness, but the kind that arrive when a lifetime suddenly makes sense. His voice trembled barely louder than a breath. Bruce. The name hung in the air. No one laughed. No one questioned it. The man standing before him didn't deny it. He didn't correct him. He simply met Ali's gaze with calm acceptance, as if he had been waiting decades to hear that name spoken again. They didn't hug. They didn't shake hands. There was no dramatic exchange of words. Instead, they stood there face to face, two warriors acknowledging something deeper than time. Two legends recognizing each other not as myths, but as men who had once shared ideas, respect, and unfinished conversations. Seconds stretched into something longer. The room felt still. Witnesses later said it was unlike anything they had ever experienced. The noise from the arena outside faded away as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Even seasoned fighters, men who had faced fear and violence their entire lives, felt their throats tighten. No one dared interrupt. No one dared speak because the moment didn't belong to the world. It belonged to legacy. In that silence, there was gratitude. There was loss. There was peace. Two paths that once crossed briefly in the past had aligned again. Not for fame, not for spectacle, but for closure. Those who witnessed it said the air felt different afterward, heavier yet strangely calm. Some described it as emotional. Others called it spiritual. But they all agreed on one thing. The room didn't feel ordinary anymore. It felt sacred. The silence lingered, not awkward, not empty. It was the kind of silence that feels full, heavy with meaning, memory, and things that don't need to be explained. Then, just before leaving, the man took a small step closer to Muhammad Ali. Not invading his space, not demanding attention, just close enough that only Ali could hear him. His voice was calm, steady, almost timeless. The body fades, but the spirit never does. Ali closed his eyes. The words didn't surprise him. They didn't confuse him. Instead, they landed exactly where they were meant to. Deep inside a man who had once built his identity on speed, power, and movement, and now lived inside a body that no longer obeyed him. A slow smile formed on Ali's face. His hands trembled as he lifted his head. Tears slipped down freely now. "You taught me that." Those nearby felt it. A shift as if something unfinished had finally found its ending. The man nodded once. No pride, no satisfaction, just understanding. Then he turned. No dramatic exit, no farewell speech. He simply walked away down the hallway, past the shadows, out of sight. And that was the last time anyone ever saw him. No one followed. No one stopped him. By the time a few people gathered the courage to look for him, he was gone, as if he had never been there at all. No record of his name on the guest list. No photos, no footage, no trace, only memories and questions. Was he Bruce Lee's student, trained so deeply that he carried his master's movement, philosophy, and presence? Was it a symbolic tribute, a carefully planned moment meant to honor two legends in a way the public could never fully understand? Or was it something else entirely, something spiritual, something beyond logic, something the world wasn't meant to explain, only to feel? Those who witnessed it were divided. Some insisted it was impossible, that grief, age, and memory had played tricks on Ali's mind. Others said no imitation could ever move like that, speak like that, or carry that kind of presence. And then there were those who stayed silent. The ones who said nothing at all because they believed some truths don't need defending. When the story eventually leaked years later, it shook the combat sports world. Fighters replayed old footage of Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali, searching for similarities they had never noticed before. Fans argued endlessly online. Historians debated logic. Skeptics demanded proof, but none of that mattered to Ali because those close to him said that after that night, something changed. He seemed lighter, calmer, at peace, as if a conversation that had been interrupted decades earlier had finally reached its final sentence. He never explained it. He never confirmed it. When asked, he would only smile faintly and say nothing at all. And maybe that was the point. Question: was this destiny or something spiritual? Comment: real or symbolic? Part 6. After the story didn't surface immediately, it waited. Years passed before the whispers grew loud enough to be heard beyond private locker rooms and closed training halls. At first, it appeared as rumors shared quietly by trainers, former fighters, and staff who had been there that night. Most people dismissed it as myth until more voices came forward. Different people, different backgrounds, same details. And suddenly, the impossible began to feel real. When the full story finally leaked, the reaction was overwhelming. Fighters, hardened men and women who had spent their lives mastering pain, broke down in tears. Not in public, not for attention, but alone, watching interviews, reading accounts, replaying moments in their minds. Coaches went silent, not because they had nothing to say, but because they didn't have the words. Gyms grew quieter that week. Training slowed, conversations changed. Fans flooded online forums and comment sections, sharing clips of old fights, old interviews, old movements they had never truly understood before. Muhammad Ali floating across the ring. Bruce Lee moving with impossible speed. Suddenly, those clips felt different. People noticed things they had missed for decades. The rhythm, the timing, the philosophy behind the motion. It was no longer just entertainment. It was language. And that's when everyone realized something important. This story wasn't about boxing. It wasn't about martial arts. It wasn't even about fame. It was about respect between greatness. Two men who never needed to compete. Two legends who never tried to outshine each other. Two spirits who recognized mastery not by titles but by understanding. The idea that they could acknowledge each other beyond time touched something deep in people because it reminded them that greatness doesn't disappear when the body fades. It evolves. It leaves echoes. Fans cried not because the story was mysterious, but because it was human. It spoke to unfinished conversations. To mentors we wish we could thank one more time. To people we hope somehow still hear us. The boxing world cried because it saw itself reflected in that moment. Fighters aging, legends passing, memories fading, yet something eternal remaining behind. Respect, legacy, connection. And in that realization, the tears made sense. Greatness doesn't compete. It connects. True legends don't measure themselves against others. They recognize something familiar when they see it. Discipline, vision, and a spirit that refuses to be limited by time or circumstance. Bruce Lee taught the world movement, not just physical movement, but mental freedom. He showed that speed without fear, flow without ego, and control without cruelty were the highest forms of power. His philosophy went far beyond fighting. It was about adapting, evolving, and being honest with oneself. Muhammad Ali taught the world courage. The courage to stand alone. The courage to speak when silence was safer. The courage to believe in oneself even when the world doubted you. Inside the ring, he fought giants. Outside the ring, he fought injustice and never backed down. Together, even without sharing the same stage, they taught something far greater than technique or victory. They taught that true power is humility. That respect is not demanded. It's recognized. That the spirit outlives the body. Their story reminds us that legacy isn't built by noise. It's built by impact. Years will pass. Records will be broken. New champions will rise. But the essence of greatness, the discipline, the respect, the spirit will always trace back to those who lived with purpose. That's why this moment still matters. That's why it still moves people to tears. Because legends don't disappear. They become foundations. They live in every fighter who trains before sunrise. In every athlete who chooses integrity over ego, in every person who refuses to give up when the odds say they should. Bruce Lee and Muhammad Ali didn't just inspire generations. They united them across sports, across cultures, across time. Type legends never die if you believe greatness lives forever. And tell us where you're watching from. Because legends don't belong to one place.